Before reading Brent Staples' essay, Just Walk On By, some ideas to consider would be looking at the subtitle, which you'll notice reads, "A Black Man Ponders His Power to Alter Public Space." As you take a look at that subtitle, you might notice that on the Xerox to the right, there's a citation that's pulled out from the text that's here in this what happens to be a blue bubble right here. The Xerox turned out to be a color one right here, as you can tell. And it reads, "It was in the echo of that terrified woman's footfalls that I first began to know the unwieldy inheritance I'd come into, the ability to alter public space in ugly ways." Okay, so you can see right here that there's a mention in the subtitle about altering public space, but you'll notice that he refers to that as being done so in ugly ways right there. I might also point out as well that the bio of the author is given before you get into his actual text right here, and you'll notice that he was born back in 1951, and also too you'll see that he has written for the New York Times. And this particular piece, if I'm not mistaken, did appear in the New York Times back in the 1980s. The textbook from which this comes from, you might notice, provides context for you. And in this case right here, it gives you some background on racial profiling. And if you pay attention to the news and have done so for the past few years, unfortunately, there have been several incidents of racial profiling that have been addressed. Even though racial profiling has been around for some time, you would still want to go ahead and read this paragraph, and you probably might have memory, of course, of what's drawn here in connection to the September 11th attacks right there, how there was a sort of people who were deliberately and intentionally focused on those who were from the Middle East, because the rationale, especially those that would be boarding airplanes who happened to be, or those passengers who were from the Middle East, because the rationale would have been that, the terrorists who pulled off those attacks were themselves from the Middle East right there. So that was the logic of them just kind of sharing in terms of that respect. And so that would be, again, the idea of racial profiling right there. But then also, too, you might recall as well, there have been incidents in terms of, African Americans as well as law enforcement. You might, kind of connect that to, such things that have inspired the Black Lives Matter movement, and, some of the protests you may be hearing about in the news as of late. And finally, a couple other things I might point out real quickly is that you'll see, that how Staples kind of leads us into it with this first sentence being, my first victim was a woman, white, well-dressed, probably in her early 20s. And then as you read along, you'll see what he means exactly by victim, rather than kind of just making the assumption on your own of what it's, of what it would be right there, or what you would probably be led into thinking it is, especially by his verbiage right there. You'll come to see exactly what he's after and why he's even kind of setting it up that way. And finally, I might point out as well that two other things, that this essay is widely anthologized, so it's taught by many college instructors and university professors throughout the United States, and so you might ask yourself why that might be. And also, you'll probably know by the end of the essay, as you read through this handout here, as you know, we will have a lengthy or a book-length text that we're working with, Whistling Vivaldi by Claude Steele. And I think part of the answer will be given to you once you get to the end of where he draws that unusual title.